Thank you for coming. This is the Lake Bluff School District 65 Board of Education regular meeting for June 14th, 2016. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mark Berry.
Present.
John Rosen.
Present.
Leanne Sherlow, present. Julie Gottschall.
Present.
Richard Haag.
Present.
Philip Hood.
Present.
Susan Ryder.
Present.
So we have enough for a quorum, so we can begin. We've already been through our closed session and our walkthrough at the middle school. We'll begin our regular meeting with a pledge of allegiance, so if you all stand and join me. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We move on to the opportunity for public comment. If anybody would like to address the board, please feel free to do so. If not, we will move along and move on to item 5, where we offer the opportunity to the board to add a discussion item for tonight or an agenda item for a future meeting. If anybody would like to raise something for the future, please let me know now. Otherwise, we'll move along and move on to our reports.
Under reports, Margaret and Nate are both going to come up together and give you a final report on our absence and truancy numbers so that you're aware of those. We do not have a PTO, Alliance, Director of Finance, Director of Student Services reports tonight.
Board President.
I don't have one either, so Margaret and Nate, if you'd like to come up and do your reporting.
It's your show.
We were debating who was going to go first, so it's going to be me tonight. There we go. So I should have up my numbers just to make sure I'm not quoting things incorrectly here. We were going to, as we did during the at the end of the first semester, reported out on the number of students that had 15 or more absences and 15 or more tardies. So we're doing that for the second semester as well. At Lake Bluff Middle School, we had 4 students with more than 15 absences for the second part of the year, 6 students with more than 15 tardies. And just to put that into perspective, there were 17 students with more than 15 absences for the year. So we went ahead and looked at that too. We'll report out on that for the elementary building.
These are different students. The tardies and the absences.
Not always.
Some of the same.
Not always. They could be some of the same. Generally speaking, though, as I looked at the names, there was a different group of students who were late to school than those who were missing a large amount of school.
At Lake Bluff Elementary School, we have a bigger population, of course, over 560 or so students, a little bit more than that. So at the first semester, we had about 10 students who had missed 15 days. For second semester, we had about the same number, 10, who missed 15 days. But for the full year, we did have a report that went to the regional office that for the full year, the number of students that missed 15 days, and at Lake Bluff Elementary, that was 62 students. So it's a bigger number at our building, and we did, work with people directly all throughout the year and sent our letters and saw some improvement. And some are some unusual situations, but it's still a pretty big number in our building.
And Nate, what was the comparable number for middle school for the full year?
17.
17. So 15 this semester, but 17.
No,
Excuse me. It was for the year. 15 or more. There were 17 students who missed.
Okay.
There were 4 students for the second semester who missed 15 or more. So it's a smaller number.
And do you have a sense of the reason for those absences? Like, do you have just kids that are, you have 62 kids that are very ill all year long, or?
It's a variety of reasons.
Okay.
When we have the excessive numbers, when we go to narrow it down, I always work with Alice, our administrative assistant, and then also our nurse.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times the list that I have does get diminished pretty quickly by either chronic illnesses or things that we are aware of, so they're not kind of unexcused absences.
Okay.
I would say we have just under 10 that have excessive absences that don't seem to be
Necessary.
illness and
Okay.
doctor's note approved. So we just, our goal this year was to communicate with those families that it's something that we really are focusing on and
Mhm.
keeping track of, and find a lot of value in having their kids at school. So I wouldn't say that 62 are unexcused absences. There's a wide variety of reasons. Some include vacations, some include actually even being out of the country for a long period of time, illnesses that are valid, and we don't want students at school when they're sick, and just a combination of things. But really, between the office staff, the nurse, and Alice and myself, we really can go through that list, and pretty much all of us together really know the reasons for most of the students who are absent.
Mhm.
And at the middle school, same kind of thing, a combination of things, vacations, sometimes compounded by a student who's already missed a lot of school for illness. That'll often push them over that 15-day threshold. But also, we've had a number of students who the majority of their time has been illness, and others who the majority of their time has been pre-planned trips or something along those lines. So just a real combination.
Did you say something about tardies as far as more than 15 tardies or something? How many were those? Because I remember last time we reported this, I was astonished by the number of tardies we had.
Right. Margaret and I didn't run the tardies for the year. We had 6 students with 15 or more. How many did you?
We had about 14 with 15 or more for the second semester.
Thank you for getting that data for us. We appreciate it.
One more question. Any sense of how this compares to prior years? So we just weren't measuring it in the same way in prior years. I don't know.
That's really the reason Margaret and I looked at the full year data and wanted to be able to compare our first and second semester. I would say that we both noticed a decrease the second part of this year. I think there was a heightened awareness for it as those letters had gone out. It certainly was impactful for some of the families that received those letters. I know that we're talking about how to streamline that data collection. It is a bit challenging because depending upon the reason for the absence, it may or may not be considered unexcused. So being able to track and dig down on the type of absence and know we have a means for doing that. We'd love to be able to do it more efficiently.
Just so I understand, it could be a combination of one kid being absent 15 times or 15 kids being absent once.
No.
No, it's 15 days that they've been absent out of the semester, so it would have to be one student who has missed 15 days
Okay.
at least. Yes.
Any other questions?
And going forward, how are we going to use this data?
We're going to use it as comparisons every year, and keep working with parents and families to get our kids in school, because they need to be here.
Really, the most effective communication was when I contacted people just individually and directly, more so than even just, we had letters that we were kind of testing out this year. So when things got excessive, or I would have a teacher that say, oh, take a look at this student, has missed this many days, and then that separate conversation is really the most effective. And I would see a market improvement for a lot of those students. There are still some that they do have factors either beyond their control, or it just can't be prioritized for their family if they have a lot of other issues or things happening.
Were there any cases where the parents were unaware of these absences or tardiness?
I think there are times when they don't realize how many it is added up to, which is, I think they know that their student has been absent. We do report at each trimester when they get the report cards, the number of days that they've been absent, but I don't know that they, in their minds, have calculated the accumulation, so it's helpful to do that for them.
One of the things that we did do differently at the middle school this year was to enable and require teachers to actually take attendance and report them into Power School for each of their periods, for each class period. And that's been helpful for us because we may have a student who consistently either arrives late enough that they're missing their first or second period class frequently, or is leaving at the end of the day early. And so while they maybe have only missed 5 days in the year, they've missed one class 10 or 12 days because of a late arrival or an early departure. So it's helpful to see that. And it's helpful for the teachers to be able to go back and know, oh, we're talking about something that you did miss last week, and you forgot to come and check in with me upon return. So that's been helpful data for us to collect as well, and we're working to make sure that it's clear when it goes home on the report cards, because that did cause some confusion. If it was reported out that a child was absent for one full day, it would have appeared as 9 absences on the report card because it was one for each period of the day. So we want to make sure that that's not being confusing when we send it home in the report card. So we worked that out, but that was new to us this year, and it was a little bit of a challenge with the report cards.
I think the only other thing I'd add is I try to communicate it in terms of how much of a school year their child has missed. So if you've missed 20 days of school, that's virtually a month of school, because we have 5 days a week, sometimes 4 weeks out of the month, not always. And so when you put it in terms like that, I think when you say your child missed a month of kindergarten, that starts to make it seem like a much more serious absence.
Any other questions? Thanks. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to our discussion items, and we begin with a discussion about the new about Vote Lake Bluff, the caucus in town. That Neil Dahlman is here tonight to give us an update on how things have changed for running for school board and other elected positions in the community. I guess it's a father-daughter show tonight too.
Hello, board member.
Hello.
My name is Neil Dahlman, and with me is Jill Rosa. And we're representing the Vote Lake Bluff caucus. About 6 or 7 months ago, the leader of the Lake Bluff School Caucus was Don Ross. And Don suggested that we should change the system that we had so that it would result in voter choice as versus a committee choice, be open and transparent, offer the opportunity for wide voter participation, but not cater to special interests. When our committee got together and started looking at ways to accomplish those things, it dawned on us that we liked the way the Vote Lake Bluff people were handling their caucus better than the way the school caucus was being handled. So we approached them, and in effect, we have now combined our efforts. And I've left a list in front of you that covers some of the things that we'll be doing. So you can see that we are to be an open, nonpartisan gathering of registered voters organized to identify and support candidates for positions of trust and responsibility for elected boards for our village, library, schools, and the park district. And when we have our town meeting in December, all registered voters of the relevant districts are deemed to be members of and welcome to participate in the town meeting. And we have formed an administrative committee whose primary job is to determine how to host the town meetings that will occur tentatively on December 6th and 7th, which is the first Tuesday and the first Wednesday of December. And we hope to hold them at the middle school gym, depending on availability. Now, the positions that we'll be nominating people for would be offices of the village. There are 5 groups. First is the Village of Lake Bluff, Board of Trustees, and the village president and the village clerk. Second is the Public Library Board of Trustees. Third is the District 65 Board of Education. Fourth is the Lake Forest High School Board of Education. And fifth is the Park District Board of Commissioners. Now, again, I mentioned that the dates that we're looking for are December 6th and 7th, and if for some reason they're not available, then we would do either of a couple of things. One is we would see if the elementary school gym is available, or we would move the meetings back a week rather than forward. If we had
We'll
to
take
move,
care of you.
it would the nominating papers, according to state law, have to be submitted by about the 3rd week of December. So we can't move it forward because it would squeeze things too much. When we have the meeting, the voting will be for candidates will be based on, in order to be nominated, a candidate will have to receive 51% of the the votes of the ballot submitted. And if on the first ballot, let's say for the school board, there will be 4 positions coming up, we understand. If on the first ballot, 2 people, let's say hypothetically, there are 6 people running for 4 positions. If 2 people get the 51% vote, then they're nominated, and there would be then a second ballot among the remaining candidates. And we would continue on that, and there's a procedure in here whereby if it goes for a number of ballots, that somebody who doesn't receive 25% of the vote would be dropped off, and so forth, until we come up with the candidates. When we have the meeting, there will be introductory tables where people come in and they sign a certificate that they are a registered voter in the relevant districts that we're talking about. Because the maps for the districts are different, and I'll get into that in a few minutes. But they will sign a qualification that they are a registered voter, and if they're in the school district, they will get a ballot. If they're in the park district, they might get a different ballot because the boundaries are different. We would then have nominations for the offices, and once the nominations are closed, then each of the candidates will have the opportunity to speak and answer questions with a 10-minute limit for each of the candidates. And when the selection is, when that's done, we have the vote amongst all the registered voters that are in attendance. And upon the conclusion of it, the meeting is adjourned, and then we will spread out tables so that the candidates will have their election papers that would need all the signatures, and we would be asking everybody at the meeting to sign the candidates' papers to help speed things up for submission to the county. Now, on pages 6 and 7 of this document, there are some maps. On page 6 at the top, there's a map of the village of Lake Bluff. And you can see the red outline of the village, and it's light green on the inside. And that is the village boundaries. Right underneath that is the school board boundaries. And the differences that you're probably well aware of are on the west and the north. On the west side, you can see on the map here that it's in white. That's Knollwood. And to the north, just east of Green Bay Road, there's a small section that's unincorporated, that's not in the village, but is in the school district. And then further to the east, just east of Sheridan Road, there's mainly a golf course that's not in the village, but it is in the school district. To complicate things further is the map on the next page, which is the Park District. The Park District boundaries, if you look on the differences again are on the west and the north sides. On the west side, there's a small portion of Knollwood that is not included in the Park District. It happens to be in Libertyville Township, whereas all the rest of the Park District is in Sherrill Township. And on the north side, they include a portion of the Great Lakes Naval Training Station, which is this square. And there happen to be 1,000 people that live in that area, but they're all recruits in the Navy, and they're pretty busy. They don't attend our schools, and they don't generally get out to enjoy our parks. But on the other side of Green Bay Road, this is Navy housing, and the people that are in the Navy that live in those housing are in our park district. So that just makes it a little bit more confusing. Well, to sum up, there are 2 things that we're looking for right now. We need more people to help us on the administrative committee, and between now and the end of November, we're going to be seeking candidates who are willing to run for office in all of these respective areas. So that's it. Jill, do you have anything to add? Do you have any questions?
I have one question. I mean, it's just more administrative more than anything else, but it seems like on December, having gone through both the library process and the school board process, I know there could be a sizable number of people in attendance anticipating to become members of either board. So, I mean, you're going to have maybe as many as 10 or 15 people who give 10-minute speeches. That could be a very long night.
Sure, right. Yeah.
maybe, but it's.
10 minutes is a long time. I mean, most people don't speak for 10 minutes at these things.
No, I'm just thinking it could be 2 or 3 hours.
When's the last time we had 15 people running for office?
Well, you got
Well,
the,
now it's all.
it's 4
Most of the
school
of the
boards,
solutions that
2 and
these
2,
in the
right?
past
We
have been
have
like
Park District and
3 or
schools
4
on
minutes.
Monday. Yeah.
schools.
They
Park
could take
District,
up to
high
10
school.
minutes, but
Yeah.
not likely.
I think that would be the longest night of the
Yeah,
board.
yeah. Gonna have food?
I'm not gonna run out and sell food that night.
Neil, can you talk about, we're all familiar with how the school caucus supported candidates running. Can you can you compare and contrast how it might be different with Vote Lake Bluff? And once you have identified candidates that have garnered support, I think in my own personal experience, the school caucus helped me get my signatures, which will happen at the big meeting. But then they also walked me through the paperwork and got me a couple of, you had to get a notary public stamp, and there's some paperwork that had to be done. Does you guys anticipate doing that as well for your candidates? And then how about in a situation where the year I tossed my hat in the ring, they didn't have enough people who wanted to run? What if you find that you're not getting candidates? We've got 4 positions opening up. What if you don't have enough people raise their hands? What is your role in that?
Well, our objective obviously is to find enough candidates, to seek enough candidates to fill the various slots. If there are 4 positions available, we can't nominate more than 4 according to our rules.
We cannot nominate 5. We have to nominate 4 or less. And if it's less, for instance, let's say hypothetically that only 3 people showed up, but there were 4 slots. Well, there are a couple of ways that could be approached. One is that Vote Lake Bluff could continue to be involved, or I think by your charter, the board itself could fill the vacancy.
If it doesn't get filled. But I was thinking of in the past, the school caucus had, like for example, I got a phone call. Somebody said, "Have you ever considered running?" So I guess what I'm asking to be direct is, are you considering actively recruiting if you get a sense that not enough people will step up?
Yes, we will do that. Yeah.
We plan to keep doing that. We've done it in the school caucus, and the vote committee has done it themselves, so they will be active asking around town and talking to your friends and trying to get interest in these boards. But I think if not enough people ran and there was a vacancy, you would feel like that would be your responsibility as it is today.
And certainly our experience is people are perhaps more likely to step up when it's not an election, when it's a nomination process. So we didn't have a problem with that last time. So good. Okay, sounds good.
Anybody have other questions? And so I want to continue on this idea, and I don't have any more questions. I appreciate you guys stepping up, but please stay for the next couple minutes.
Thank you very much.
Neil,
Thank you.
I don't know if it was from Janice.
No.
Sent me a letter. Janice Snopridge, is that it pronounced? Snowbridge. Asking on behalf of the school district if we could help them identify what we consider to be the 3 major issues coming up that a candidate will be facing as a board member in the future, as well as what qualifications we are looking for in other board members. And I didn't feel it was my position to answer that directly from my perspective. I wanted to bring it to you guys for your input. So I had drafted some ideas that I emailed that hopefully people maybe got a chance to look at, but I'll read it to you now. I'd like to get your input so that I can then turn it around and get you the responses. So we had been asked, what do you perceive to be the 3 major issues facing your board today and in the near future? Now you'll see that I've got it down to 3 points, but I think those 3 points incorporate several things. And please let me know if you think there's more to be added or it's too much. The first point I said was, in terms of major issues facing the board in the future, uncertainty surrounding financial issues controlled by the state, such as potential property tax freezes, state funding for special programs, state pension shifting, funding shifts from wealthier to poor districts, and the North Chicago school situation. That's all one.
That's a big one.
It's a big one. It's a big one. The second point I made was having to do with balancing the requirements for academic excellence with controlling rising costs. And as an example, I gave contractually obligated cost increases in light of our PTEL limitations, restrictions due to the property tax extension limitation law. And then the third thing I said there was a big issue will be retaining administrators as well as board continuity during times of transition at the administrative level. I thought all these are really big deals over the next 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and want to make the Vote Lake Bluff aware of that, but also if you guys have things I should be adding to that or changing, I'd love to hear them.
One thing that I was kind of thinking about was the need to share services and or consolidate. There's some pressure from the state to do that. If that fits in there.
Possible shared resources between intergovernmental agencies.
Oh, big things. There's a lot of big things. I don't know how. I might have to give you more than 3 bullet points. Sorry, just notes agreement. Then we're also asked to highlight some qualities we're looking for, what might make for a good board member in the future. And I put down some ideas that please give me your thoughts on these as well. I said looking for demographic as well as geographic diversity within the community. Geographic diversity meaning it would be nice to have somebody from Knollwood and the terraces and the village and from all over. Demographic meaning all ages, all users as well as non-users in the district. Individuals perhaps with financial or corporate experience would be beneficial. Kind of a qualitative, more subjective characteristic, people who are open-minded and good listeners, as well as no individuals with single agendas, no single issue agenda candidates, because that can really kind of disrupt the harmony of the board if somebody comes in and it's just all about one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts, points of view?
Good.
I think they're good.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks. I'll get you guys this follow-up in a day or so.
Thank you.
Formalizing that.
Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you. Thanks, Jill.
And Neil, we'll get you into hopefully the middle school. We'll get you.
Look, it's
You've been on the committee. You need priority there.
All right.
yeah.
So now we're going to go to discussion of the 2016-2017 tentative budget. And Mr. Khan, I believe, will take us through that.
As Jay gets set up for this, I want to remind you, last year we did this in August. This year, so some of the assumptions and things he's going to work through are a little bit different because he's doing this presentation before the fiscal year has ended. We will be tweaking this over the summer and then bringing you approval on the tentative budget in August. And then you vote on the final budget in September. So Jay is going to take about 10 minutes, go through the usual board presentation, and then he'll answer as many questions as you have before we move on.
Okay. Here tonight to talk to you about the 16-17 tentative budget. Just as a reminder, the board passes a tentative budget and then it's on display publicly for at least 30 days before the final budget is voted on. I've made a few updates in the slide presentation up here that have been uploaded again, and just in case you're following them along in your packet. So it obviously includes the LBMS renovation project. That's going to be a big part of this year's budget. And I'll go over the history briefly, talk about revenue and expense assumptions, debt service assumptions, and get to fund balance. So this is also want to mention that all of the comparisons are going to be budget versus budget since we're still not through with the fiscal year yet. The 2016-17 operating budget is balanced, and it does include a middle school renovation budget of a total of $10.5 million. A few things I wanted to point out: the transportation and IMRF deficits are intentional. Revenue is shifted to the education budget through the tax levy, and this is just a way to spend on our fund balance in those funds because they're getting on the higher side. Then the deficit on the debt service fund is kind of an artifact of the way the taxes are levied. The taxes are levied on a calendar year basis, and we defer our June revenue, and we're on a fiscal year basis, so there's a little bit of a difference between what we owe and what we were able to collect. And then capital projects is a big number. That's the balance basically of what we haven't spent to that $10.5 million on the middle school project. Just looking over time, you can see going back to 2010-11, this black line represents our fund balance. Here's our balanced budget. All the expenditures in excess of revenue are essentially the middle school project, the capital project. Last year we issued some bonds, and so then these deficits here are just the intentional reduction of fund balance, that's the money that we're spending on the project. And the ending fund balance projected here for the end of next year of $4.7 million. Again, this is based on the 15-16 budgeted ending fund balance, and then how next year's budget will change that fund balance. So if you had read through your board packet, you'll see that we're expecting a significant surplus this year relative to the budget, so that's not included in this number. So our actual ending fund balance, this number represents about 31% of operating expenditures, and we could be as high as 38% depending on how this year's surplus comes in, what the actuals are. So just to take you through the revenue assumptions, again, it's based on the 2015 tax levy, which increased total operating taxes by 1.7%. 0.8% of that was on existing properties through the Consumer Price Index, and then 0.9% was on, that says existing property, it should say new property. They're actually about the same to get to that 1.7. And then debt service went up 62% over last year, and that's as a result of the planned increases in our existing debt service. Payment schedule just increased this year, and then we also issued a little bit of debt to help fund the middle school project. There's, in this budget, again, very conservative state revenue assumptions. I've put the general state aid into the capital projects fund because I don't want the district to be dependent on it for operations, but at the same time, last year I didn't budget it at all, and now we're seeing a big surplus, so I want to try to budget things a little bit more accurately this year. And this is actually a balanced budget, but when you see the final budget, I plan to go back in and put in I'll keep the expenditures where I think they're going to be, but put in some of the revenues where I think they're going to be, and we'll have a surplus budget instead of a balanced budget. Just to go through the state assumptions, this is all based on the Senate bill, the current Senate bill that's out there for the new school funding formula. General state aid is going away under the new formula. We would only receive about 40% of certain special ed funding categories, and then transportation funding is prorated every year, so that's been budgeted conservatively. And again, we're shifting transportation and IMRF revenue a little bit to reduce the fund balance in those funds. So looking at revenue more specifically, again, this comparison is budget to, it should say budget. Actually, I think this is not the right presentation. I had a couple of presentations going, and so I've got the numbers here, but it actually is a 0.7% net operating revenue increase over last year's budget. If I actually showed it versus actuals, it would be a decrease, again, because we're getting that state aid, but I'm not anticipating getting it in the future, so I'm budgeting as if we're not going to get it in preparation for that. Yeah, that is actually last year's slide, so I apologize for that. I think this may have sent the wrong presentation to. This actually doesn't change. This is our state funding, or our total funding in proportion. 92% is property taxes, 4% other local, state and federal are very small. So these are the right slides. Salaries are increasing. Our LBTC average based on our contract is 4.2%. Other increases were 2.5%. We have no change in full-time equivalents, and we have one retirement. Medical and dental insurance is increasing by 3%. We did also reduce our consultants next year and our professional development by about 20%. And then this year, we also have a significant supply and capital spending in the budget associated with the new renovation project. So there's several big projects that were not included in the renovation budget that are on the district budget. Basically the new security system, the cameras at the middle school, new access control. We are upgrading our wireless infrastructure throughout the building, getting new classroom projectors in the new wing, and then just to expect to have to spend money on miscellaneous furniture and equipment for the new space. A lot of these projects are being done in conjunction with the renovation. They would have been on the district budget anyway, but we didn't want to put in new stuff and then tear it all up, so we waited and we're doing it kind of while everything is being renovated. And then our private tuition, we have a student who's graduating, so that will decrease as well. Just a quick look at professional development. We have fewer new teachers, so we have fewer mentors. Our summer curriculum spending is pretty much flat, but we shifted across the fiscal year this year, so we're going to be under budget this year and a little bit over next year. And then consultants we're reducing considerably. Basically, we've had great results from Nate Eklund and Mary Jo Stevenson and Janice Heigl and some others, so we need to rely on them less for the future. We can kind of go on our own. We have some significant technology expenditures. These are also included in some of the numbers I showed earlier. We are going to have some more laptops this year, 2 years of computer leases. We're getting some new Chromebooks, and then we have some technology associated with the construction and STEM labs for the new school.
Is a question, I apologize for not asking this ahead of time, it's another one that just kind of occurred to me. The Chromebook pilot, and this may be a question for Kevin or Jean, do you guys anticipating that rolling into something bigger over time? Is that going to...
They're going to talk about that during the...
We've got a whole section on that, but essentially it went pretty well, and those Chromebooks are going with the second graders to third grade, and we're buying new ones for the second graders. So we're going to do it on a year-by-year basis, but so far it was successful.
Okay.
This slide is a little bit better to talk about our expenditures. This is just based on, so salaries are in line with salary increases that were contractual and given. Benefits are in line with the revenue increase. Again, this is sort of the year of the supply and capital budget. Purchase services are going to be greatly reduced this year. And then, as always, when you move into a new place, you've got lots of expenses. You move in, you figure out all the things you need to buy. That's going to be us next year, so we put a lot of money in for those items. Just some that we know of and some that we don't know what they are yet, but know that they're going to happen. This is just a pie of how our expenditures break out: salaries, benefits, purchase services. Salaries and benefits are the lion's share. This is our debt service. So this was last year, and this shows the big increase this year to debt service, and then also shows that we'll be flat from here on out for debt service. So there's one more opportunity to refinance some of that debt, but we plan on having level debt service for the foreseeable future. And then our fund balance, we're looking again at 31% based on ending the year even this year. I anticipate that ending fund balance as a percent of operating expenses will be 36 to 38%, depending on where the numbers come in for this year.
I'm sorry, say that again. So it says 31% up there.
So this 2016-17 projected fund balance is sort of built. This is the change in fund balance projected for this year for next year based on next year's operations.
Yes.
And all I'm doing is taking the last year's budgeted ending fund balance and adding the change to it. So we're going to be reducing our fund balance, our operating fund balance this year by $4.5 million. That's the money that we're spending on the middle school. And we were, we had a certain fund balance budget for this year end. And assuming that we were exactly hitting our budget this year, this is how we would end up
31.
at 31.
Yeah,
But
but
I'm
we're doing better than that.
expecting
So
we're
we're
going to do a lot
36.
better than that. And I don't know how much. If we, $750,000 surplus would be 36%.
Okay.
$1 million
I
surplus
understand.
would be 38%. We'll be
So
somewhere between
see
500,000.
that go down. We'll start from a little higher
Right,
before we.
exactly. So we should still go down next year by that much because we're spending the money. We know
Right.
we are. But we'll have a little bit more cushion, I think, going into the year.
Yes. Any questions, comments?
No, it looks good. I'm glad we're able to manage the increase in expenses to 1% given the salaries are going up by contract. So.
Well, and then again, that's the increase over last year's budget. So any surplus, there will be some increase over actuals. When I come back and present this again, I'll be able to do it versus actuals and be able to see the true increase versus this year.
Thank you, Jay.
Thanks, Jay.
All right. Thanks, Jay. So now we're going to move on to our action items. And if you've looked at the agenda, we have 15 of them or something.
A lot of usual ones.
So we're going to move through this as quickly as we can. And we are going to begin with our personnel report, item 8A. And I'm going to go right to our personnel report. So tonight, in terms of personnel, we're going to be talking about approving a new position for a speech pathologist, Jenny Lee. No, that's not a position. I apologize. That's an FMLA medical leave, effective November 14th. We have a resignation of Nancy Bachrath, who's a technology specialist at the elementary school and retiring. And then a summer school position for Nancy Ark, who's a teaching assistant, whose salary happens to be fully covered by a title grant. So, may I have a motion to approve the personnel report for June 14th as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Rosen.
Yes.
Charlot, yes. Gottschall. Yes. Haig.
Yes.
Hood.
Yes.
Ryder.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes. Okay, moving on to the motion is approved. Item 8B. Approval of administrative contracts. So tonight we are talking about 6 administrative contracts we're going to approve together for our Director of Student Services, Technology and Assessment, Dr. Kevin Rubenstein, our Director of Financial Services, our CSBO, Mr. Jay Kahn, our Curriculum Coordinator and Teacher Leader, Ms. Kelly Bay, our Middle School Principal, Ms. Nate Blackmer, our Elementary School, Ms. Margaret St. Clair, and our Elementary School Assistant Principal, Ms. Tracy Rorick. If you recall from our discussions, these contract adjustments involve approximate salary adjustments of about 2.5% for each one of these people, plus or minus just a little bit depending on the individual issues in their contracts. Per school code, they've been posted online for the past 10 days and are available to the public viewing, so should anybody want to drill in deeper. Any questions, comments, or discussions among the board on that?
No.
Nope.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve the administrative contracts as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Charlot, yes. Gottschall.
Yes.
Haig.
Yes.
Hood.
Yes.
Ryder.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Rosen.
Yes.
The motion is approved. Item 8C, approval of Prevailing Wage Act. In case you guys didn't take a long look at it, every year this is something we have to approve for any contracts that we enter into. The details of which are quite detailed and a little tedious. If anybody has any questions to ask Mr. Khan, I imagine would be the one.
Nope.
So, not hearing any questions. May I have a motion to approve the 2016 Prevailing Wage Act as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Gottschall.
No.
Haig.
Yes.
Hood.
Yes.
Ryder.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Rosen.
Yes.
Charlot, yes.
Motion's approved. 8D, the approval of the GCA contract. GCA is our,
Good.
is our. Would you like to comment on that?
I am opposed to prevailing wage, and I think it's ridiculous that we have to rubber stamp it, so I'm opposed on 2 levels. And I enjoy that.
So noted.
Thank you.
It's like 2 meetings in a row.
You're a rebel. It's all up, huh? Usually people tell me ahead.
Jay will give you a couple quick lines on the GCA contract so that you know the contract details.
Which is a custodial contract.
Yeah, that's our night maintenance.
So exercise the right to renew with GCA, we're satisfied with their service and performance. And by contract, the increase is by CPI at 0.7% to $250,000 a year. It's a new contract amendment before you was drafted.
Reviewed and drafted by our attorneys.
Any questions, comments,
I have a
concerns?
question. On the GCA contract, page 135.
135.
Oh, our board packet.
Yes. Somehow it's got janitorial and cleaning services, Lake Forest Elementary School District 67. Why is that in there?
Did it directly. So we did one bid with Lake Forest and they responded to each individual district. So
That's actually one of our shared resources.
Okay, well, it doesn't say it's shared in that, that's why I was just confused.
Shows a good, careful read, though. Nice going.
Page 135, no less.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right, so maybe we have a motion to approve the GCA contract.
Is that correct, the way it's written?
that was the bid document. And the bid document becomes part of the contract. So the terms and conditions are contractual.
So yes, it is correct.
All right.
All right, may I have a motion to approve the GCA contract for custodial services as recommended by the administration and presented in your board packets?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Hey.
Yes. I still don't understand.
I'll note a
how-
reluctant
how it
yes
can
for
only
Meg.
say- I still don't understand how it can only say that district rather than our district.
It's because of the bid document.
The amendment says District 65, so that's
I'm sorry?
the amendments. The ordinance into minutes.
As long as we're not paying for the Lake Forest schools to be cleaned, we're
Yeah.
fine.
There we go.
Okay, so Haig was a reluctant yes. I have next Hood,
Yes.
Ryder,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Morozen,
Yes.
Charlotte, yes, Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay, motion's approved. Approval.
One other question, how come it's still going to Jane Lair?
This is from the.
I don't know the answer to that one.
That's the bid
That's
document.
The original bid document, that's why.
All right. Enough trouble for Mr.
When we move into field trips,
I
it's
never want
just-
to rent a car with you.
I don't want to rent a car with you.
Be at that desk, lay that counter all day.
All right.
when you move into field trips,
A little punchy.
I need to remind all of you that per board policy, any out-of-state or overnight field trips need to be approved by the school board.
So, Gene, if you would, or one of your designees, can you give us the 2-minute summary of the field trips
Yes,
we're
we
talking about
have
here?
our usual, it's Atwood, our 6th grade spring field trip, our 7th grade outdoor education, and our 8th grade Washington DC.
Okay. Any questions or comments or concerns?
No.
May I have a motion to approve the field trips for the elementary school and the middle school as recommended by the administration and presented in detail in your board packets?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Hood,
Yes.
Ryder,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Morozen,
Yes.
Charlotte, yes, Gotcha.
Yes.
Haig.
Yes.
Motion's approved. Here's another one of those rubber stamp things, Julie, if you'd like to contest it. Approval of hazardous crossings, and if somebody would like to enlighten us, why we do this, that would be helpful.
It's,
I know it's required by state code.
I think we just have to, you want to take it?
Well, we need to let the state know what hazardous crossings are. It has to do with transportation reimbursement, where we get reimbursed for transportation for students.
But do we really?
Yes.
In the formula, if they.
In reality,
if
though.
they're a certain distance from the school where there's a hazardous crossing,
Yeah.
they can't walk, so we need to provide us.
But just in reality, there is no money that we've gotten for that in years, right?
For regular transportation, we get $16 per student.
Oh.
So we do get something.
That's something.
So if a student lives with a hazardous route, we get an additional
Yeah.
$16.
Okay. Anybody else need further clarification? All right, we have a motion to approve the hazardous crossing resolution as recommended by the administration.
So moved.
Second. Roll call vote, please.
Ryder.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Rosen.
Yes.
Charlo, yes. Gotchall.
Yes.
Haig.
Yes.
Hood.
Yes.
Motion's approved. Now we move on to the approval of our single path contract. And who's going to give us a little overview?
Kevin or Jay, I'm not sure which one is going to do that. Jay.
Jay.
Single Path, our current 3-year contract with Single Path is expiring. They currently provide us a lot of critical services. They act as our technology director. Kevin is our technology director, but has 3 or 4 other jobs. So
Or 100 others.
Focused, they call it virtual CIO, they're chief information officer. And they see lots of school districts, and so they give us a broader perspective. They manage our network, which is all of our technology infrastructure, and then they provide switches, firewalls. Just not
We heard you.
So they've also done a great job in guiding the technology at the LBMS project. We really couldn't have gotten this far without them. So they've done a great job. They're proposing a flat renewal for 3 years. So basically we'll have the same rate with them for a total of 6 years. The 3 years we're just finishing, and then the next 3 years. So we recommend continuing our arrangement with them.
Been very happy with their services.
That's good.
Anybody have any questions?
No.
Good. All right, we have a motion to approve the single path contract as recommended by the administration.
So moved. Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Barry.
Yes.
Rosen.
Yes.
Charlo, yes. Gotchall.
Yes.
Haig.
Yes.
Hood.
Yes.
Ryder.
The motion is approved. Let's see, on to item 8H, the approval of annual banking depositories. For best practice internal control, the board is asked each year to approve existing banking relationships. Is there anybody, would you like to enlighten us further on this?
There's no change versus last year.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
I just want to note that this side of the room is equally meticulous, and that says annual band depository approval up there. So just want to make sure that that's noted. We are not depositing bands.
1-1, got it. All right, I have a motion to,
You're welcome.
motion to approve the banking depository as recommended by the administration.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Rosen.
Yes.
Charlo, yes. Gotchall.
Yes.
Haig.
Yes.
Hood.
Yes.
Ryder. Barry.
Yes.
Yes.
Woo.
The
That's
motion's
a good
approved.
record.
Approval of insurance renewals. I'm going to ask Jean to
Jay.
ask other people to
Jay's
give a
going
summary.
to update us on that.
This is the Jay Kahn show.
It is. At the end of the year and the beginning of the next year, we have to approve everything. Our property casualty renewal was very favorable. It's with CLIC, which stands for Collective Liability Insurance Cooperative. It's similar to NIHIP. We pool our risk with a bunch of other school districts, 187. And although the total cost for the co-op went down by about 5%, our renewal was a slight increase of just over 2%. Mostly due to our experience. We had the claim last year for the LBMS break-in. We have a 4-year-old claim for school board legal liability, which was fairly significant relative to the premiums that we pay, and we're still feeling the effects of that a little bit, and that should fall off next year. So we should see better renewals next year, but this is still a great renewal and a great program.
Okay. Questions?
Did you say 4 or 40 year?
It was 4 years ago,
It was
Okay.
the year before I got here.
and they do a 5-year average experience.
All right, so can I have a motion to approve the insurance renewals, workers' compensation, and property and casualty as recommended by the administration and presented in detail in your board packets?
So moved. Second.
Roll call, vote, please.
Charlotte, yes. Gotcha.
Yes.
Haig.
Yes.
Hood.
Yes.
Ryder.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Rosen.
Yes.
Motion is approved. So now we move on to the approval of the fiscal year 17 school treasurer's surety bond. This is done annually after Mr. Khan is appointed the treasurer. The necessary documents from the insurance company are attached in the board packet. This must be submitted to the Lake County Regional Office of Education by June 30th. Anything you'd like to add to that?
No.
Okay, any questions from the board?
I guess just that the premium is a little bit higher this year because of all the cash we have for the LBMS project from the bond sale. And then when we spend that money down, you have to insure less cash, so next year's premium will be lower.
Yeah, okay. Any other questions? May I have a motion to approve the fiscal year 17 school treasurer's surety bond as recommended by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Haig.
Yes.
Hood.
Yes.
Ryder.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Rosen.
Yes.
Charlotte, yes.
Motion is approved. Item 8K, approval of computer leases. The administration recommends that the board approve the purchase and lease of 100 new Apple MacBook Air laptop computers for the incoming 6th grade class. And if you guys would please expand on that a little bit.
Jay's gonna cover that one.
We need 100 computers for our new 6th graders, and we propose using the same leasing services as last year. This would be basically added to the master lease already in force. We would pay a total of 86% of the cost of the new computers over the 3 years of the lease. And so next year we'll make our second lease payments on the 2 batches of computers we leased last year, and we make our first payment this year. So we were very happy with the lease arrangement last year, and we would recommend continuing to do that in the future.
So on the memo and elsewhere, we reference computer purchase and lease. As I understood it, we were talking about leasing. Are there also some purchases going on?
Well, this is really the approval of the lease of the computers. We need to, when I say purchase, it's really the procurement of 100 computers. We need to get them from Apple, and then the leasing company pays the bill for us, and then we pay the lease.
Make sense?
Those
Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion to approve the computer leases as recommended by the administration.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Haig.
Yes.
Hood.
Yes.
Ryder.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Rosen.
Yes.
Charlotte, yes. Gotcha.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Item 8L, approval of Chromebook purchases. During the 2015-16 school year, students in 2nd grade began using Google Chromebooks under a pilot program to determine if these devices would meet the needs of the students at that grade level. After piloting the program for 1 year, it's determined that the 2nd grade students will be using their devices in 3rd grade, meaning that we will need to purchase new devices for our 2nd grade students. You gonna add to that?
That's exactly it. So we are purchasing new Chromebooks for our 2nd grade students, and the current Chromebooks that we purchased last year will be rolled up with our incoming 3rd grade students.
Anybody have any
And
questions?
Susan, to answer your question, the idea is that if this continues to be successful, what we have done in the past is that we have continued to recycle the MacBooks from 8th grade down to 5th grade and 4th grade. And so if this continues to be successful, then we would continue to roll up Chromebooks to the different grade levels.
rather
4th
than
and 5th grade at the elementary,
MacBooks.
rather than MacBooks.
Now, what's the difference in cost between for 1 unit? Do you know?
Somewhere between $600 and $800.
That's huge.
Difference.
Chromebook's $178. What it says here.
Per Max.
But you're talking about in the past, we rolled the used Macs
Typ-
down, so they've already been paid for. So
Right.
this is
Typically, what we've
incremental cost.
done is that we purchase the Macs in 6th grade, and so they are used Macs, and they have gone 6th, 7th, 8th, down to the 5th, and then down to the 4th graders. So they're pretty used by the time they get to the 4th graders. So this again continues to be successful, and we would roll those up for another year as Chromebooks. And get a third year use out of the Chromebooks. We're not sure if that's possible, what condition they'll be in, but in any case, if we'll be able to use them, then that will certainly be a whole lot less expensive than buying another group of MacBooks and doing it that way, especially given our 3-year lease.
Is it conceivable, if this program is successful over time, that it could continue to roll up to the point of maybe replacing Apple products at some point?
That's something that the technology committee would really need to discuss. It is, there's a lot of technology that is used at the middle school in their one-to-one program that is heavily dependent on the Apple and the MacBook. So that would be something we really need to discuss.
So it would impact more than just the individual units itself?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yep.
They do use Chromebooks at Lake Forest High School.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Anybody have any other questions? Not hearing any. May I have a motion to approve the purchase of Chromebooks as recommended by the administration with the details presented in your board packages?
So moved.
Second. Roll call vote, please.
Hood,
Yes.
Ryder,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Rosen,
Yes.
Charlotte, yes, Gotcha,
Yes.
Peg.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Item 8M. We are moving
The
on.
third time you've seen this board policy. Third and final.
So this is policy 5:330 and brought for second reading and adoption. Was first brought to us on May 10th and May 25th. Does anybody have any questions? So this policy, if you could just summarize. what
It
it's
just
about
aligns,
again.
all we did is make changes to make sure it aligned to our practice.
Yeah.
That's it.
Any questions or comments or concerns?
No.
Okay, so may I have a motion to approve board policy 5330 as recommended by the administration?
So moved. Second?
Is this going to cost us any money to implement this?
No, you can do it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Motion approved. Item N, consent agenda. Go
Oh,
through.
you have to read that again, do you?
Yeah, you gotta read each item in the consent agenda, unfortunately. So, this week we have a consent agenda consisting of our P-card report, our bills report, our impress report, our treasurer's report, open session meeting minutes from May 24th, 2016, which were regular Board of Ed meeting minutes, closed session meeting minutes from April 12th, 2016, April 9th, 2016, and May 24th, 2016. Does anybody want any of that pulled out to discuss?
No.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second. Roll call vote, please.
Barry,
Yes.
Rosen,
Yes.
Charlotte, yes, Gotcha.
Yes.
Peg.
Yes.
Hood.
Yes.
Ryder.
Yes.
Motion's approved. The next item is FOIA requests, and it's my understanding we didn't have
We
any
don't have any on this report.
on this
We'll
report.
have some in July.
Okay. And then we have the opportunity for public comments. If anyone would like to address the board? Not seeing any.
I thought I saw him.
They're not working.
May I have, barring anything else anybody else wants to say, I would ask for a motion to adjourn at 8:10 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're adjourned.